Let me share with you a very simple message, very simple sermon today. I've got it printed out in the bulletin. If you want to follow along with me, you can do that. But I want to share with you from God's Word, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 22, just one verse. And it's a really special verse, especially for those perhaps that maybe you're stepping out for the first time today. Maybe you've never really served in this capacity before, and you've decided this year, I'm going to step out a little bit more. I'm going to step out a little further in faith. I'm going to try and do something a little bit different today or this year. And maybe it's the first time you've ever really tried to get involved in service through Bethlehem Christian Church or with Christ at all. And really this sermon will hopefully be an encouragement not only to you, but to all of us that have been here, and even those that have been here all your life and you've faithfully served for years. What is it that God has for you this upcoming 2017? And the time that God's given you to serve here through this local church. And 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 22 says it like this. Now, this is the Apostle Paul. He's talking to the church at Corinth, and he's talking about how to reach people for Christ. He says, and this is from the New Living Translation I'm reading from today, in 1 Corinthians 9:22, when I am with those who are weak, I share their weakness, for I want to bring the weak to Christ. Yes, I try. Now, listen to this. Yes, I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. Now, some translations, maybe the English Standard Version might say, I become all things to all men in order that I might do everything I can to save some, and some of you might be thinking, now, Pastor, we can't be everything to everybody, right? But we can be something to somebody, right? And really what this is saying right here, that although, I understand you can't be everything to everybody, but what this is saying that yes, sometimes, when we fellowship together and we do things together, there are those that might be difficult to reach. There might be those who are different than us. Are we willing to do what it takes to find common ground with even those that are different than us? Are we willing to do whatever it takes to reach out to them? The Apostle Paul is saying, to the Jew, I'm a Jew. To the Greeks, I try to become like the Greeks. If it's the strong, I try to, relate to the strong. When it's the poor, I try to relate to the poor. When it's the weak, I try to relate to the weak. And I do everything I can to try to find common ground with them. Why? In order that I might be able to win them to Christ. That's what I want to share with you this morning. That's what I want to talk about. The first point in moving forward in service in the message today is find common ground with everyone. With everyone. There's no exception here. We ought to do everything we can, whatever it takes, to find common ground with everybody in our life. If we can find common ground with them, that would be a wonderful, beautiful thing, and it can open the door for something greater. The reason why we do what we do here at Bethlehem Christian Church, the reason why we do all that we do here at Bethlehem is in order that we might be able to find common ground with folks, that we might be able to win them to Christ. That's the hope. No, we won't be able to win everybody, but it says in order that we might save some. We know that we are going to save some, so let's go out there and let's get them. Let's find common ground, and let's do everything we can to find common ground. What does common ground do? I tell you what common ground does. Common ground opens the door to friendship. If you can find a common, something that you like that someone else likes, or if you can find common ground of any kind with someone, it could be with someone you've never known before, never met before, but you go somewhere, you're doing something, you happen to find out that you both kind of like the same sort of a thing, and you find common ground. And it begins to open up their heart. It begins to open up their mind just enough where you can begin a friendship of some sort. And a stronger, and it's the foundation. Common ground is a foundation of building a stronger relationship, a stronger friendship in the future. I tell you something else common ground does is it breaks down barriers. You can be so different, and you can be, so many differences with someone else. You might look different, you might act different, you might smell different, you might do things different. Your culture might be different, your skin color might be different. Everything's different from you and that other person. But if you can find some kind of common ground with even that person, then I can begin to break down even the biggest of barriers. Maybe it's a gift of something that you know that they like. You can give them a gift. That would be finding common ground. I'll tell you something else common ground does. It shows others that you're just like them. Although that we might be different, there are some similarities we have too. I'm real. I'm authentic. I like to have fun too. I'm one of you. That's what common ground does. It shows people that although we might have a lot of differences, there's so much more that's probably similar about us too. And if we can find that common ground, that's something that we can build on. And that can begin to open the door. And that can begin to break down some barriers. And why do we do all that? In order that we might be able to eventually share the love of Christ with them, with the hope of winning them to Christ. Something else common ground does, it just lets people know you care. That it's not all about you. It doesn't have to be all about you and what you want and what you think and how you think things ought to be. But if you can find some common ground, and then it shows the other person, I'm willing to, give up some things. I'm willing to sacrifice some things to find some common ground. I'm willing to give that a try. I'm willing to do that. Why? Because I care about you. It shows I care about you. And we care about your eternal soul and where you're going to spend eternity. Common ground shows that a person has some kind of love in their heart. And love is the key that can open up someone's heart to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Common ground can open a person's heart. Common ground can be the beginning point of changing someone's mind, of changing someone's heart that's been stubborn and stiff-necked and never been willing to change. Are you willing to find that common ground with that person? Common ground can lead you to winning someone else to Christ. Let me just give you some examples of the way we did this last year. We did something we never done last year in this car show that was wonderfully successful. And we found common ground to folks that like classic cars and different kind of cars and trucks and things like that. And we just had a good time together doing that. And we found some common ground. We began to build some relationships, build some friendships with some folks that we'd never really done that with before. And it's made a difference. And there were people that we got ministered to. We showed people that we cared. And it's opened the door to a community of people that perhaps we would have never had the chance to get to know them otherwise and to share the love of Christ with them. I think about stuff like Trunk or Treat and our supper and our auction and the soup and sing that's coming up this Saturday. Most folks like to hear singing. If they can't sing, they usually at least like to hear, some music or the Valentine's banquet that's coming up and the not so newlywed game and just having fun and just doing goofy things like that sometimes and just wanting to do different things and try different things. And the ski trip coming up, give that a try, find some common ground. These are all examples of we're just finding common ground. We're just doing stuff. Why are we doing all this? What does a ski trip have to do about Jesus, about church? Well, I tell you what it has to do. It has to do about fellowship. It has to do about building relationships with one another. It can be like a pre-evangelism event of we get to know a person. We get to know them personally. We get to spend 2 days with them, talking to them, building a relationship with them, with hopefully being able to teach them how to build a relationship with Jesus. That they'd come to our church, that they'd be willing to, the common ground. Maybe they can come to an event like some of these events that we do. Maybe they wouldn't come to church on Sunday morning, but when they come to an event, to some kind of common ground, they kind of realize who we are, what we're all about. And they're like, man, I think I'll give that church a try. They'll show up here on one Sunday morning. They're like, wow, I can see doing that again next Sunday. And they'll come the next Sunday, the next thing you know, they're getting involved in our worship and they're getting involved. And maybe they'll join us Sunday school class, or maybe they'll get involved in some other events, and maybe they realize that, hey, they're a sinner. Yes, I need to trust Christ for the forgiveness of my sins. And they walk the aisle, they get baptized, they're like, I want to choose not only to belong to Christ, but I want to belong to this church. But sometimes it all starts with that common ground. And one day you'll get to see them in heaven, and you'll spend all eternity with them because you found common ground. God could use anyone. God could use anything. You know, no matter where you work or what you do as far as a career or a job, whatever you do, whatever you're doing, whatever you like to do, whatever your hobbies are, whatever your interests are, all of that is just, you know, the reason I'm doing that is, yes, I got to pay my bills and I've got to provide for my family, but really the most important thing here is that, you know, I can, you know, it's like marketplace ministry. I can find common ground with those I work with and show them what it means to, you know, to represent Christ in this place where I am and what God's doing in my life. My love of football. You know, I played football all the way from as far back as I can remember. Me and my brother and growing up and my dad instilled that in us and I just remember, you know, I don't hardly remember a time never playing football and you know, I went and played college football at Gardner-Webb University, played 4 years there, and then after I got through playing football, I kind of got burnt out actually, and there was several years that went by that I was like, man, I just don't want to hear anything else about football, and because man, it was hard work in college, and but then over time, I began to like it again. And I was like, God, I was so involved with football for so many years. And God, I served as Fellowship of Christian Athletes president for 2 years at Gardner-Webb University. And I'm like, God, is that going to go to waste? You know, how are you going to use that? And let me tell you, I went through 20 years of never really using my football, my love for football, never really using that for 20 years of my life. Why? Because I got married, I had children, I was in the ministry, my heart was in serving Christ in the ministry. But then Coach Snuffer calls me one day over here at Western Alamance High School and says, hey, would you like to be chaplain over here, team pastor, you know, our team over here? And I'm like, well, I'm interested. And, you know, I got some questions, but I'm very interested. And next thing you know, last couple of years, I've been able to speak some truth, speak some life into those guys, been able to pray for them, pray with them, get to know them, and just show them what it means to love God. And that's something that God's, you know, used. That's just one example of what God's used in my life. And you never know how God might use these things in your life. You never know how much time might go by. You know, it's all in God's time and in God's ways. Number 2, do whatever it takes. Not only do you find common ground, like this word, like the Bible says, find common ground, but it also says, doing everything I can, doing whatever it takes. In fact, if you read the next verse, verse 23 in 1 Corinthians 9, he says, I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessings. How many times have you missed out on the blessings of God because you haven't been willing to do whatever it takes to serve Him in a new way or to share His love with someone else? You're missing out. You need to get involved. You know, that slogan, whatever it takes. You know, that's just a good slogan. You know, we use that on the football field. Whatever it takes to win, we're going to win, right? Well, that's the way it is in winning people to Christ. We're willing to do whatever it takes, no matter the circumstances. And yes, circumstances can be difficult, and maybe you're in a difficult situation right now, and maybe you're like Pastor Todd. This is, you know, 2016 wasn't a good year for me. 2017 hadn't started out right yet either, and this is happening, this is going on, and we had all that snow, and it was cold, and it's just cold, and this is going on, and this has happened. I experienced this loss, and this is going on. But folks, we don't need to lose the vision. As a Christian, if you call yourself a Christian, if you call yourself a follower of Christ, no matter what you've been through in your life, no matter what the circumstances are, you should have the kind of attitude that I'm going to do whatever it takes, no matter the circumstances, to find common ground, to win people to Christ. If you wait for perfect conditions, it'll never come. Just start today. Start where you are. Start in your home. Start with your family. Start with your neighborhood. Start with your school. Start with your community. Get involved where you can. Let God lead you and use you. No matter where you are, no matter what the distance may be, are you willing to go wherever you need to go to do what it takes to win people for the gospel? No matter who it is, either. Doing everything, no matter the circumstances, no matter when it is, no matter where it is, no matter who it is. You know, there's a lot of people that might not feel comfortable coming in this church, and they're like, I just can't see myself going to Bethlehem Christian Church. But maybe they go to the church down the road here, or maybe they'd go to another church right across the community over there, and maybe we can find common ground with that congregation. Maybe we can begin to build some new relationships with a different kind of people, a different kind of congregation, find some common ground with them, get to know them better. Because in case you haven't realized, we don't know it all. We're not that perfect. We have not arrived yet. We can learn from other cultures. We can learn from other people. Just because we live in America, that doesn't mean that we have it all right. There's some things that we can learn from people in Uganda. There's things that we can learn from people, over there in Europe and Asia and Africa and Australia. And we can learn from one another. And we can grow. And we can be stronger. And we can be better. That's when we get proud and we turn within. We miss out on the life that God intended us to have. What if we did something different this year? Did something we never done before to find common ground with folks we never found common ground with before, in order that we might get to know them, that we might be able to win more people for Christ right here, that they might be able to win more people for Christ there, that we might be able to win more people for Christ in this community as we're a witness to our community and the world. Think about it. Have you ever thought about it that way? How about this? No matter what the cost, no matter how much money it takes. Oh, pastor, there's no way. Oh, church, we can't do that. We can't do that. It costs too much money. Well, God owns the cattle upon 1,000 years. I don't always know where all the money's going to come from. All I know is that maybe God's calling us to do something different. Maybe God's calling us to do something that's far beyond our means, so we can trust in Him to do something in our lives that He's never done before. And it costs a whole lot more money than any of us have. But somehow, some way, He provides, because where God guides, He provides. God's work done God's way never lacks God's results. God can do it. Do you trust Him? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Yes, we have to consider the cost. Yes, we have to dot our I's. We have to cross our T's. We have to plan. We have to prepare. We have to organize. And and that takes time. Yes. And we got to do those things. But don't kill it on the front end. You step out on faith and you begin to walk with the Lord, and you listen to the Lord, and one step at a time, one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time. And then God can eventually bring it to pass His way, His time, not my time, not my way, and not yours either. We have to work together, and that's why we have to come together as a church. We can do more together than we can do apart. What if it's something that's difficult, requires a lot of work, calls us rolling up our sleeves? Bethlehem Christian Church has never been afraid of rolling up our sleeves, getting our hands a little bit dirty and getting involved in doing something. We're going to do whatever it takes. We're good at that. We can do that. We're hard workers. But what if it's something that just makes you look foolish? What if God's calling you to do something? What if God's doing something and it's like, man, if I did that, what would my friend think about me? If I stepped out on faith, if I've decided to get baptized, if I decided to join this church, if I decided to begin to serve Him on that board or that committee or that ministry, or if I got involved with this group of people, if I got involved with this group of Christian people, I wonder what my friend would think. I wonder what my family would think. I wonder what this community would think. I wonder about the people I hang around. What would they think? Who cares what they think if you're serving Jesus, if you're deciding to follow Jesus? Because what matters is not what they think. We don't live to please man. We live to please God. Living life, in fear of man is a snare, is a trap. And some of you are trapped. And the way you get out of that trap is you repent and you say, God, forgive me. I want to love you and follow you. And be willing to do whatever it takes, even if it means looking foolish to my brother or to my father or to my friend. Because my friends didn't die for me on the cross. Jesus died for me on the cross. Willing to do whatever it takes, no matter how foolish it must be. And one more thing, and I'll be done. Are you willing to do whatever it takes, no matter the sacrifice, no matter the suffering that you might have to go through in order that you might win others to Christ? Well, that's hard. That's difficult. The Bible talks about it time and time again. God never promises us a pain-free life, but He does promise us that He'll be there. That He'll guide us and He'll help us. That His grace is sufficient. That He'll give us what we need to get through. But we're never more like Jesus than when we sacrifice and suffer in order that we might be able to save others. Because that's what He did for us. He sacrificed His own life, sacrificed everything in order to save us. So we want to do the same. Let's bow our heads and close our eyes. And in this time of prayer, perhaps you realize that you haven't been finding common ground. You haven't been doing what it takes or whatever it takes. Are you willing to do something different? Are you willing to sacrifice your own plans, your own agenda in order to follow Christ? God, I pray if there's anyone here today that has not stepped out on faith and moved forward in faith, trusting You, God, I pray they do it today. Because, God, that's where the real love and peace and acceptance and meaning, direction, and significance in life comes. So in Jesus' name I pray.